the video, so we'll take a quick screenshot. And I understand mostly people have been come for this program to understand the energy conservation measures, as well as particularly on the solar powered water supply system. I understand that. So I request participants, if you have any doubts, you can clarify with an experts. With no time enhancement, because Mr. Mallikarjun is already here. I welcome you for this program, sir, to meet you first time in this program. And a lot of being in a sector of more than 3 decades, like working on this, it's a great one. And we are also quite happy that you have come here to benefit the participants and to take that the energy mechanism is a significant aspect. A brief introduction about Mr. Mallikarjun. He is a Chief Executive Officer of Sunshab Technological Private Limited. If I go through his resume, almost every line is showing on the energy. I can tell he's an energy man. That's one of a clue. And a lot of lead auditors he have been done. And the significant aspect is that he have done most of projects in the infrastructures and also exclusively in the water supply. So I request participants to take a great look on this and share your ideas, because additional chief engineers have come. I also thank you the participants who have come from Sikkim, Meghalaya, Uttarakhand, Kerala, and also Bihar. I feel people are joining today, and this will be a very good day for them to understand better. Now we request Mr. Mallikarjun to take over from me. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Shubha madam. Thank you and welcome all for this a brief introduction of what energy audit mechanism is. But anyway, it has been a great beginning, and it is quite interesting to hear that energy significance is being seeping down to the rural areas as well. I would be starting my presentation with the screen. 1 minute. Okay. I believe you all can see my screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, today's topic is basically on capacity building program, wherein energy audit mechanism is what is being focused upon. And I'm happy that the Indian Institute for Human Settlements has called me to just brief the top executives of various states to see what is it that can be done in rural water management system, and how is it that it can be made more efficient. And to make it more efficient, what are the ways and means to achieve the goal. Now, just before I start my presentation, I think I'll just read out. You have all seen this, but to bring in continuity, I would like to just emphasize on what Jal Jeevan Mission is talking about. See, if you go through, I'm not going to read word by word. If you just go through this, it does talk about energy efficiency, energy conservation, new technologies that are being developed across the world, and how best one can achieve the goal with minimum energy requirements. Now, since I heard, I also go through the list that many of you are coming in from remote areas where drawing of lines, grid lines basically, is quite a difficult task. So in which case, invariably, you have to go for a on-site power generation to meet the requirements. So which basically is solar powered. So considering these aspects, I have focused myself in trying to brief as to what is it that we need to look for in the course of achieving our goal. Well, as briefed, I'm Mallikarjun Kamdal, a certified energy auditor. I'm CEO of Sunship Technovations Private Limited. My credentials and my contact details are listed in almost all these slides. Now, to make the point more effective, I would like to say that we are also having our presence in Germany, where we practice as energy auditors, and they call us as energy berater. We are also registered, very recently we got registered with the Mauritius government to consider our various opportunities for energy savings. And I'm happy to see Kerala team here, where I'm also empaneled with Kerala government as an empaneled energy auditor. Although we have not been able to do anything because of the COVID situations, I hope we should be able to do some good activities there. Now, as energy auditor, it's very difficult to survive in today's context, purely earning ourselves on energy audit. But having learned the code of ethics from German policy, I have incorporated the same even in India as well. So as a result, we are purely focused on energy audit, and we educate team of experts on what is it that we need to be doing with respect to energy conservation and energy efficiency. So people have been talking about energy efficiency, but we talk about energy conservation and energy use evaluation in the process of obtaining best known energy efficiency. And as a policy, like I said, we are purely focused on energy audit, and we do not at any point of time supply or support any of the utilities in marketing any products. When we say so, it might become quite contradicting, because in the course of our energy audit, we are supposed to discuss various technologies. In doing so, what we would be doing is we refer various suppliers on a neutral platform. We do not endorse any of the products, and the same thing we would be discussing in the course of our presentation as well. So you can be assured that what I talk from now on in the course of my presentation is what actually we practice. And this is predominantly mentioned in all our activities as we go ahead. I don't know how Shubha madam came to know about my activities. She had been referred by one of the executives from the same Waterfield line, who are involved in taking massive projects. To introduce myself much more than what I did right now. See, probably you have seen or you must have read this particular magazine, Bulletin on Energy Efficiency, which was rather published by IRDA, Indian Renewable Energy Development Agency. I don't know whether it still continues to be published. But in 2005, when I first started my certified, although we are working on energy audits, energy aspects, but after having certified as energy auditor, I started tabulating or penning down all my views. And this was one of the article which was published in Bulletin on Energy Efficiency, and the caption read, "Water energy, two faces of a coin." Incidentally, this was my first article, and I was thrilled to see that it became a cover page article. And the content of the articles are basically here. Water energy, two faces of a coin. Probably once I share this, you will be able to get the entire discussions of what we basically meant by water and energy, two faces of a coin. Going further, we also did a small exercise on the utility aspects. Me being placed in Hubli, North Karnataka, I took typical energy consumption parameters from our Karnataka Water Board, who are responsible for supplying water to our civilians. I also collected information on the water bodies that exist in and around the within the municipal limits of Hubli Dharwad. And we also evaluated what is the amount of rain that we receive and what effect it could have in case all the rainwater that we receive during the rainy days is captured and then utilized for internal circulation. This is quite surprising. The amount of rainwater that we receive is much more than what actually we require. Of course, when looking at the delegates here in this particular forum, you receive almost 3 times the rain, somewhere around 3,000 to 4,000 mm rainfall in your respective areas, which invariably would be multiplying much more than what actually I'm talking about in this particular case. Now, talking about energy audit mechanism, what actually is it? Why is it that everybody is talking about energy audit? We all talk about energy audit. I think incidentally, our Prime Minister also is having a presentation parallelly addressing the nation on the significance of energy. See, basically in energy use, what we are supposed to be looking at is energy audit. Basically, the word audit is bit offending, where I basically tell everyone it should have been energy use evaluation, so that people could embrace the entire exercise with much more openness rather than going defensive, because audit in itself is a caution. People find that people are going to come and find faults with us. What I would say is energy audit, or rather energy use evaluation, is just a way to find opportunities to improvise the existing system. It is basically a way to understand the condition of the assets. We need to assess in what condition our existing assets are. Is there any possibility of improvising? Are there any problems relating to that? And once we identify, we also need to understand that we need to pull out records that have been supplied by the OEM, tabulate what is its actual condition, and then draw the performance curve. Once you draw the performance curve, you know the status, how it is going to be performing. And then periodically review whether there is any improvement that has been done, that has been effective, or there is a deterioration. If there is a deterioration, we need to again review why it has come down. And if there is an improvement, look if it can be further improved upon. Going ahead, there are various ways of looking at energy. See, energy general statistics are usually published by almost all the pumping system suppliers. Now, one thing we need to understand is whoever supplies the pumps or the motors or the system as a whole would be basically working on one particular benchmark. Now, the same benchmark may be existing on site or may not be existing. There can be a much better working performance, or it can also be much lesser depending on the parameters that exist on the field. Look, when we look at this part, what basically is to be done is, first and foremost, see how best we can do it with a low cost. It is not necessary that you immediately take up an extensive detailed audit. Maybe an energy auditor in the respective field can be called in and asked to do a basic walkthrough audit, wherein we don't connect our meters, but we just have a walkthrough, survey the parameters under which the systems are working, and then we decide the in depth of the energy audit that is required to be done. Now, when we do this, it is at this point of time that we decide, okay, these are the measuring instruments that are required on site, and this should be the time frame. This should be the parameters where we need to focus upon. And once we do this, then we can chalk out our actual action plan and propose a task that can be executed, that can be studied upon, that can be considered for future developments. So once we decide on that, it is important that we discuss with people like you who are the custodians of the assets, and then draw the methodology for estimating various energy efficiency or energy conservation parameters. It is also important that we list various measuring instruments that are required for making the energy audit effective. Now, there is one key element which basically we differ, or we have, I mean, most of the energy auditors would have a problem with, is measuring and verification program, basically MEC. Now, what happens is, it is not to blame on either the utility or on the energy auditor. Most of the times, the utility is not aware that there are some unregistered tappings, or there are some unregistered users, and they don't have the proper records of their with their in their office. So whatever the information that have been shared with the energy auditor would be considered as accurate, but when you really execute, you find that the variations are much higher. So considering this, there is a lot of debate on measuring and verification, because what we measure may not really exist as per the records expected to be on the field. Now, when we talk about rural water supply mechanisms, what is more significant is the quality of the power that is available for pumping water. Although all the government agencies are making it a point to supply good quality power and uninterrupted, but it doesn't really happen so, because again, the utility is again hampered by various tapping points in between. So it is the quality of the electrical power that really decides what will impact on the energy efficiency of the assets that are being performed. Now, just to put it across, what we would be requiring to do is measure electrical parameters. When I talk about electrical parameters, invariably you will all know that it is current, voltage, and kilowatt. But what I basically as energy auditor would be focusing is current drawn by the utility, kilowatt, that is actual power, and the power factor which decides the power demand. If I can make sure that the power factor is more near to unity, then the kilowatt would substantially get reduced. That's the actual power demand would come down, and also the energy requirement would come down drastically. Now, on the other side, we also need to measure the pressure, velocity, head in terms of the work done, that is basically the pumps. Now, in between these two, we have what is called as a coupling. You have a pump, you have a motor, which are coupled together through a mechanism. Now, the coupling efficiency is what is more critical, because even a 0.5% efficiency loss in the coupling can lead to a significant change. And it is very difficult to measure the coupling efficiency because most of the pumps do not really give provision for mounting the torque sensor on the shaft. It is mostly possible only in large size pumps where you can say 100 HP or 200 HP and above. And in rural applications, maybe it is quite difficult, but wherever it is possible, we should consider to explore that option as well. Now, the other aspect is in rural applications, most of the time, the pumping timings have been defined. Either the water is pumped in during the morning hours or in the afternoon or in the evening. And it is very rarely seen that most of the pumps are working 24/7. And even if they are working, the supply line is throttled to divert water to different areas in the rural distribution system. Because if you are pumping water from a reservoir, there could be 10 villages where the water could be supplied, or even 2 or 3 or whatever the number of villages in the line are. So invariably, the pump curves would vary a lot based on the head, based on the quantum of water that is being drawn and the size of the pipe that has been laid in the system. Now, what I'm talking about is mostly known to all of you. But what I would be now focusing on is the way how we present our findings. We need to identify various leakages in the pumping system. We need to understand the energy balance. When I say energy balance, the amount of power that has been drawn, amount of energy that is being utilized to the work done by the pumping system. Work done by the pumping system obviously will be liters per hour or liters per day, or if you measure the parameters, the velocity with which the water is flowing, or the pressure, and those are parameters, which would be invariably converted into energy equivalent to understand whether the system is working fine or not. And to do this, we would mostly be using a pictorial representation, which basically we call it as Sankey diagram. Now, this particular diagram would identify what is the input power, what is the delivery, and where all the losses are going to be in the entire pumping system. And it is very important when we draw this to be very specific to defining our work done activities. That is basically energy consumption, specific energy consumption, where I talk about kilowatt per liter or per kiloliter of water being supplied at a specific head. Like I said, if there are 10 city villages, then at that particular village, there could be a different kilowatt per 1,000 liter of water pumped. For some other village, it could be different because it is again defined based on the head and the elevation and other parameters. So these basic significant parameters need to be discussed in detail. Now, again, what is that we need to be looking for? Usually people think that once you do an energy audit, it is done and dusted. No. What is important is energy audits need to be carried out on periodical basis, on year basis. It is not with an intention of, again, finding faults. It is with an intention of making sure that your pumps are working to the rated parameters. It is also important when we consume water, the impact on environment is also playing a very important role when we do this energy audit. Now, when I talk about this, probably people in hilly areas would understand much better, because during rainy days, everyone has surplus water. And during summer days, during non-rainy days, they find a lot of difficulty in fetching water, even it's a bucket or so. So this has a direct impact. So considering all these parameters, it is important that we draw impact assessment on the environment by water pumping mechanisms that we have adopted for. In doing so, we need to understand various technical and operational parameters, which we would be discussing in the subsequent slides. And the whole system now boils down to the finance and economics. People usually try to work on return on investment, how best we can recover the money. But I would like to emphasize here that water is life. If we all need to survive, return on investment or whatever the banking terms are should not be applied. But considering the parameters, various technologies that are available, we need to work on life cycle cost analysis, which invariably does directly or indirectly refer to economics and financing terms. Now, when we talk about financing in the financial terms, we mostly look for net present worth, return on investment, rate of return, benefit to cost ratio, payback period. All these parameters are existing. But what I basically insist upon is the life cycle cost method, which is very, very vital and very significant when it comes to question of rural water supply mechanisms. Now, having said what is it that we need to look for in energy audits? Now, it is also equally important that the task is assigned to a competent authority. Of course, it might be very difficult, or it may not that it is impossible. It is very difficult for me to travel all the way to Northeast and execute a small energy audit assignment, considering various difficulties that exist. But there should be a local energy auditor who should be able to do a good job for you. And it is important that energy auditor is available to you on call, because he has certain observations to make, certain considerations to extend. So whenever you choose an energy auditor or energy use evaluator, it is important that he has a sound knowledge on the technical aspects of whatever systems you are working on. Now, since we are working on rural water supply mechanism, he has to have an in-depth knowledge of the pros and cons. The technology that I adopt for urban supply may not directly or completely apply for rural mechanisms. Rural water supply has got a different approach. Urban water supply has got a different approach. So we need to understand and then be very firm what actually we need and what is it that the energy auditor understands about our requirements. Now, it is also important that you rate an energy auditor based on various parameters, maybe past work experience. Now, when we talk about past work experience, in Indian context, it is very rare that a good reviews are given by the client. For the simple reason, people consider energy auditor as a critic. Yes, energy auditor is supposed to be a critic, but with a positive approach and not with a negative approach. When I say this, He has no intention or no intent to find faults. His intent to find faults is to educate all the users in bringing awareness as to where the improvement exists, what are the opportunities, and what are the benefits. And when we do so, please be assured that the critical comments passed by an energy auditor are in the interest of well-being of the supervisory or the maintenance staff on the field. Now, if you have too many problems, a problem which keeps occurring every now and then, and if the suggestions made by the energy auditor are not executed, and you continue to keep facing the same problem every now and then, just because the remedial measure might be capital intensive, you find the time that you spend on the manpower, the time you spend on the supporting components, cost that you spend on the supporting components would all be much higher than the one-time replacement. So it is very important that all the critical comments passed by the energy auditor are to be considered in a very, very positive mind. And when he does so, he has to make sure that he is applying the right kind of instruments. He should not be under pressure. So usually what happens is, in most of the energy audit assignments floated in the tender, the agencies do not focus on the infrastructure that an energy auditor has. They only look for the turnover. Where has he done so many assignments? What is the turnover? What are the certificates? And then the assignment is given. But what happens in the course of time is the energy auditor uses his instruments, which might be hired from a third source for a fixed duration. It can be for 1 day or 2 days. And then he rushes through the next assignment because the rent on the instruments that he has hired would be incurring more expenses for him. So it is very important that an energy auditor be considered based on the instruments that he is owning and not on what is available to him. Now, just to emphasize, not that I'm trying to boost myself here. Now, if you can see the list of instruments that I own, like I said in the very first slide, that I believe in talking what I do, and I do what I talk. So here you can see nearly around 30 plus instruments which are being used by me. Some of these instruments are repeat. There's more, we have more than 1 or 2 sets. And most of the instruments that I have been using for the pumping systems have been highlighted here. It is not that I have all the instruments. We still need to procure more and more instruments, which would be coming as the days go by, because every instrument costs us in lakhs. And if you look at the present list of instruments are now somewhere around 57 lakhs plus. And we do not know when the assignment is going to be coming. But then whenever an assignment comes, it comes with a satisfaction that we are doing a good job for the client. And that's why I have been able to sustain working purely on energy audit and on an unbiased report submission. And that's what I basically insist that all the utilities, all the officers whom we are talking to now, consider an energy auditor who owns these measuring instruments rather than the one who has hired the instruments, because that's the kind of seriousness that one energy auditor would be having, and he would show his concern for. Like I said in the earlier, in the few minutes before, that many of you consider financial credentials of an energy auditor. In some cases, people try to limit the turnover of an energy auditor in line with the supplier of equipment. See, if a person is working on a 1 crore or 100 crore project for water supply mechanisms, the consultancy figure could be only around 0.5 to 3%. which is much lesser as the project cost goes up. So an energy auditor has to be evaluated based on this key important parameter, saying, okay, 3% of a project cost, 3% of the project cost of the total, capital expenses should be the eligibility parameter for an energy auditor. Like say, if I'm handling a project of 1 crore capital expenses, consultancy fees can be only around 3 lakhs. Now, if it is to be 100 crore, it could be 0.5 or 1% of 100 crore. So these are some of the issues that people who are drawing the tender specifications need to consider in order to get a real quality energy auditor on the board. Now, focusing on the critical checkpoints. Earlier, we discussed what energy audits are, and then we discussed about various other parameters, and then how to evaluate an energy auditor. Now, from your side, what is it that you need to focus upon? What is important is you need to build a document of all the specifications of the assets that are under your evaluation. Whatever pumping systems you have, if at all they are pre-existing, then you need to dig out from the files and make these documents available readily for your reference, either from now or in future. If at all it's a new project, you should emphasize to build up a special file where all these documents are filed, both in digital as well as in hard copy form. And it is equally important that the technical details are made available to the auditor without any restrictions. Whatever documents that are available with you need to be made available. If at all they are not available, please be open to say that, okay, these parameters are not available with us. We need to build the document based on the existing systems that is available, that is seen on the site. And a good experienced energy auditor should be able to build up those documents as near to as the OEM supplier intends to give. Not necessarily very correct, but nearer to that, it should be able to be made possible. Now, once you have the basic document, there's a baseline parameter set. Based on this, then the performance in line with these documents has got to be evaluated. And it is the key important parameter for you as utility owners to insist that the performance curves are drawn based on the OEM supplier. Now, these performance curves would basically indicate various issues that are existing on the site. Now, there could be very good feedback, or there could be some parameters which indicate that there are problems existing on the site. And also, it is very important that the future requirements are defined or evaluated by you, so that whenever an energy audit is conducted, the condition to meet the future requirements of the pumps, of the pumping requirements, are understood and their performance is evaluated. So these few things are required from the utility side. Apart from this, it is important that you need to understand that rural water supply system, like I said earlier, is completely different from the urban water supply. So you need to clearly define your source of water, whether it is from a dam, whether it is from a pond, whether it is from an open well, or whether it is from a bore well, deep bore well. Once you define this, then the working parameters would change a lot. Now, if there are pumps working in parallel, a list of those pumps should be made available to the energy auditor so that he can focus on that particular parameters. Because when two pumps are working in parallel, the pump curves totally differ a lot. And it is also quite important that an energy auditor, even if he does a walkthrough audit or a detailed audit, he may not be able to grasp the entire pipeline laying in the village. So it is important that you draw a geographical map, draw the line of the pump, and then make it available to the energy auditor as and when it comes up for an energy audit or energy use evaluation. Now, the next part is basically people, like I said in the earlier part, we tend to, if it is given on a cost analysis basis, I tend to connect the meter for a day or two and then move on to the next pump. Now, on that particular day, there could be pumping or there may not be pumping. So it is important that you insist that the energy auditor carry out his study based on the cycle data. Now, if you are pumping water once in 2 days, make sure that he connects the meter on all three to four times during the particular operation time. And if there are 24-hour supply, then you need to do for continuous 24-hour supply for 3 to 4 days, because water consumption during daytime is different. Water consumption during evening is different. In the morning is different. And during the night, it's totally different. So it is very important that we focus on evaluating our energy, water demand, which leads to energy demand over a period of time. That is basically the cycle of operation. Now, when we do this, it is equally important. It is not just the energy consumption that are critical. We need to draw water balance as well. Suppose if I'm pumping 1,000 liters per second or say per minute from the reservoir, out of this 1,000 liters, how much of this is actually going to the end user? Now, end user basically means how much of it is basically recorded or billed to the end user. And since it is a rural supply, most of the times you don't have a meter. So only way of evaluating is the number of tapping points or the opening points that exist in the supply line. And we can do some sample readings of the water that is flowing out from these particular taps at the end user side and draw the net total water pumped to end users. Now you know, if I'm drawing 1,000 liters per minute, how much of water is going out at the opening at the tap to the end user in 1 minute. And if there is any shortfall, if there is any difference, then we need to do some sort of a reverse engineering to understand where the loss is actually happening. Now, it is important that the utility asks for the methodology that would be adopted in evaluating a rural water supply mechanism. It is very rare that people ask for the methodologies that each energy auditor applies. Now, this is quite important because this decides the net cost incurred by the energy auditor in conducting the energy audit assignment assigned to him. Because in today's context, since we do not supply any material, it is intellectual property that is being extended. So some would fix his price, say around 10,000 or 1 lakh. The other one might be saying it is going to be costing you 10 lakh rupees. In such a scenario, it is very difficult for the authorities like you to draw a definite line as to how and what could be the best energy auditor whom you can select upon. So the methodology that each energy auditor would like to execute should define the costing and the expertise that he has. And there could be some parameters where probably you have not heard of, but when he draws the methodology, you will know that, okay, these are the things that are quite important for us to understand. And also the duration of the data that is being captured. Now, there are some cases where simultaneously water is being pumped to various cities, various villages. Now, when you draw the water balance, one is the energy balance, the other is the water balance. When you draw the water balance, it is very important that tapping points at multiple locations are simultaneously recorded on real-time basis. Only then the water balance, true water balance, can be drawn. I can see if there are 3 tapping points. It is not advisable to connect the meter here at point 1, capture the reading, then move on to the point 2, capture the reading, and then to 3, because the water consumption parameter might have changed during this period. So it is important that we do simultaneous recording of the water flow and then draw the water balance. And as it is, most of the government organizations would be insisting on NABL calibration certificate, and it is quite important to ask for a holistic calibration certificate. When I say holistic calibration certificate, it is not just the mother instrument. All the accessories that are working with the power quality or the measuring instrument should be considered. For example, if I am measuring the electrical parameters, by having calibration certificate only for the meter doesn't suffice. You need to have a calibration certificate for the CTs that are being connected on the site. Usually we never consider to get CTs calibrated. And even if it is so, even if the measuring instrument is calibrated, it is calibrated only at very, very low working parameters. It has to be calibrated for the topmost range or the working range on which it is being applied. And same is the case with respect to flow meters. Like of course, I also said, it is important that we focus more on owned measuring instruments and ask for the details from every energy auditor. Now, having discussed about what one needs to look for energy audits, now it is also important to consider what are the parameters that would be required to be considered by an energy auditor. Unless we define, usually these parameters would be neglected. So it is important that we ask for listing various polluting factors in the water pipeline system. Now here you can see in this particular picture that people are washing clothes. You have a bullock taking bath, and there are various other activities being carried out in the open pond. Now, when you see this, if you were to pump the water from this particular source, then it is very difficult for you because the pumping parameters would change a lot. It would change because most of the impellers or the footwall would get choked and is not seen in the today's context when it comes to question of pumping water. Now, there are various cases, even see in the pond, open pond that we have seen, or in the various other things, where people are now pumping water from the lake directly to the end user. And in mostly rural areas, we find there is a small check dam. People walk in, fill their bucket, and then come out and then start using it for themselves. Some of them use right on the bank, just as you saw in the pond in the previous papers. Now, this leads to a lot of pollution. Now, when it leads to a lot of pollution, you will have the public health department, which is responsible for cleaning the water, purifying the water, will incur a lot of energy in filtering out these pollutants. So what you can consider probably is, I just try to draw a typical indication. If this were to be your reservoir, a pond or a lake, instead of allowing people to walk into the lake and then fill their pot, what you can do is you can have a filter mechanism placed at the center of the pond or very near to the pond, the center of the pond, pump the water through electrification process, could be solar panel or could be grid supply, fill it to a tank which is on the bank, so that all the civilians and the public can fill their pot without walking into it. And if at all there is excess flow, if the tank is overflowing, the return path can be given back to the pond so that the water doesn't get lost or it doesn't get wasted. So when you do this exercise, you make sure that all the dirt and the filth that is spit over the on the road doesn't take entry into the pond. And you see many people taking bath, and in many cases the same water is being pumped because there is no other alternative source in the rural areas. Now, in other aspect is sulfur is another issue where it has been eating a lot of it has been creating a lot of problems for the public, for the civilians, and as a result health department is struggling to control that. And this is very difficult, most so because the rural water supply mechanisms are spread. They don't have a centralized water mechanism, water supply reservoir, the reservoir. So the best way is, probably people have seen water hyacinth. It's some sort of a weed where Northeast people probably have seen it in plenty. And the backwater lakes also will have this. This water hyacinth is one plant which can be built. You can have a pond at the point of its opening or at the mouth, and the water that flows through water hyacinth plant is known to purify the water and reduce the load on the water purification plant. Now, just to give you an example, the initial reading of the water H2S content was known to be around 1700 units. Now, after 24 hours, when the water was passed through the water hyacinth plant, it came to be around 884 units. And when it flows over to the next pond with the same water hyacinth plant, with a different set of hyacinth plants, it got reduced to 680. Third day, it was 630. And fourth day, it was around 622. These are the parameters that were measured in the water. Now you can see the percentage of H2S that was absorbed by this water hyacinth plant is listed here. Somewhere around 60 to 65% of the pollutants have been absorbed by water hyacinth plant. That is after evaluation. It is not just these water hyacinth plants. There are other chemical compositions as well. It can be calcium, magnesium. All these pollutants, which are known to hamper the performance of the working system, are absorbed by this water hyacinth plant. And as a result, when this contaminated water is passed through a series of water hyacinth plants, would result into more or less a quality water. And further, when you treat the water for purification, the load on the water purification plant is to somewhat reduced to a great extent. And this is where we talk about energy conservation rather than energy efficiency. Of course, a detailed discussions on energy efficiency on various parameters would be discussed because there is another topic on water pumping system. So he would be talking more, I believe he is going to be talking about the various efficiency parameters that are going to be involved into. I'm just trying to touch upon certain areas where we need to look for this. Now, there are other mechanism. This, in fact, I had designed it way back in 2005 and is being widely practiced by our Southwestern Railway Zone people. See, here the mechanism of water filtration, especially when it comes to question of open pond or open lake, is that the water comes from the various catchment areas, flows through, and then you have various filtration media. Water takes an entry down below. You can see the arrow down here, and then it starts climbing up. Now, when it flows down, it leaves behind the light particles. And when it flows down, flows up from the other side of the wall, partition wall, it leaves behind all the heavy particles. So as a result, the water that comes out from this particular pipe outlet would be more or less a pure water. I have also mentioned it's just a small.
Hello.
Yeah.
Sorry, sir. I think that was disturbance. You can continue.
Okay. Okay. So there are various issues.
Good morning. Sorry, sir. Excuse me. Good morning, sir.
Yes.
So myself Namit Ramola, sir, from Uttarakhand, a superintendent engineer.
Yes, sir.
Dehradun, sir. Sir, I just want to know, sir, can we raise our query during this presentation or just after it get completed?
No, if you have, I have no problem. Either way, it is for the organizers to decide. I'm open for both.
Ask, sir. You can ask in between. No issues. If there is a conversation discussion, it is good only. You can ask any doubts or questions. Yes.
Okay. First, sir, actually, I have just joined 5 minutes ago, sir, because I am serving election duty also, sir, in Uttarakhand, and in our state election polling this counting duty I have appointed. So I have just a query, sir, because it is a very interesting topic, sir, regarding this energy efficiency, sir. In our Dehradun district, we have lots of tube-well-based schemes, sir. Tube-well-based schemes in rural areas. Okay. So I have a query, sir. How we can incorporate this energy efficiency points in our estimate for especially in case of two wells, so that it will be useful for us, sir. This is my point, sir.
Sir, see, Dehradun, I think, is a hilly area.
Sir, it is there are 6 blocks in Dehradun, out of which 3 blocks are plain terrain, sir, and rest 3 blocks are hilly terrain, sir.
Okay, sir. Now, how is the building? I mean, the civilian cluster, house cluster, thickly populated or
sir,
staggered?
where our two-well based schemes are there, that are very highly populated, sir, and it is very scattered. Sorry, sir, it is very dense populated, sir.
Dense populated. Okay. See, now here the important part is you have to consider 2 aspects. Can we go for increasing the water table? Point 1. Point 2, can we look for a better efficient pumping mechanism? Now, point 1 is based on the community effort. Point 2 is on your side. Okay. Now, since I said there is going to be a separate session on the pumping mechanism side, I would just leave that to the other person who is going to be making presentation on pumping systems. Now, on the pumping, on the community side, the area which is catering to the pump, the tube well which is catering to the specific, say around 30, 40 or 100 houses, what you can do is collectively capture all the rainwater that hits the terrace, draw a pipeline and feed the borewell pump. Now, if you can do that, then automatically the quality water would take entry into the borewell. If it can be done, then what happens is the water table shoots up. It starts rising up. And once the water table rises up, the energy demand would drastically come down, irrespective of what pump you are using.
Okay, sir. Sir, my point is that if we go through this point, sir, point number one, if we use rainwater and percolate it to the boring point, sir.
Ah.
I have a query regarding it. Somehow, sir, what comes in my knowledge in my past experience, the water table. Is it possible? Is it possible, sir? It get polluted also sometimes, sir. If we directly send it to the bore well, the water which we are boring from the tube well, it is possible that it get polluted, or we can
Very true, sir. Very true. That's why I said the terrace water from all the community members should be collected, and not the surface water, not the water that flows on the road. Because the water is going to meet the requirements of the local inmates. Say around, you have around 50 houses. Now a community collection can be made from all these 50 houses with the knowledge of each and everyone. And since they are the people who are going to be using the the water, they invariably would be concerned about keeping their terrace clean. If they keep their terrace clean, it means that the clean water is going to take entry into the borewell. And of course, the mechanism to do this activity, probably you can write to me on my email. I'll share you.
Hello. Mallikarjun, sir?
I think his
I
call
think,
got disconnected.
Yes, yes. I think sir will join back.
We'll close it by 11:30 session. The next speakers is already in 11:30. I asked them to join.
Yeah.
Any more question, participants? You can ask now the questions.
My question is very simple. That the point I have raised to Mallikarjun sir, that what will be the right procedure to capture rainwater and percolate it to the tube well, bore well point. And this I want to know. And second issue is coming because local community does not support, because terrace or property house is basically of a local community, and if they are not supporting to for making this rainwater harvesting arrangement, in that case, what is an alternative? What is an alternative in that point? And secondly, I want to know. I want in this training session only. I want some methodology also. Methodology also to how we can proceed it more effectively.
Okay, sir. So you are in mute, Mr. Mallikarjun. You are in mute.
Okay, sorry, I got lost because net connectivity had lost.
Sir, 11:30 we will close your session. You can take this question and then close it.
Yeah.
Should I further repeat my question, sir?
Sir, I think yeah, you can repeat. I'm not sure whether I'm able to share my screen here.
No,
yeah,
sir.
Right.
Your screen is visible, sir.
Yes, sir. Tell me, sir.
So my point is that only, sir. Ki what will be the appropriate method to capture this rainwater, to percolate it to the ground to borewell points? Sir?
Yes, sir. Okay, sir. I got what you wanted it. Now, like I said, maybe the organizers can ask for a separate session, because this is going to be a detailed discussion, because it has various parameters about pollutants coming from various sources. Because the cigarette butts would be having a different element. Human spitting has got a different parameters to be considered. Bird sittings will have a different parameters to be considered. So what I suggest is, yes, yeah, the point is very important when we consider for this particular thing, but maybe the organizers can consider to have a separate session on this, and I'm open for it. Maybe after this, if at all time permits, we can take it up as a continued session.
Okay, sir. I
Right,
will
sir.
request. I will request to organizers, sir. कि, one session regarding this borewell point of view, what will be the right appropriate technology, and the major parameters which we have to look, like sir has told, that if possible, please make us a session for that, sir. And
Sure,
I will also request that session should the PPT should show in a, diagrammatic way, so that we can understand very easily what type of a filtration we should use if we are using, because I have worked in rainwater harvesting from last more than 15 years, sir. But what I found, it was not that much effective till date, which we can increase the groundwater table. But this is very important for our state also and other state also, sir. So this is my request.
sure, sir. Sir,
So we will.
just to go ahead. Yes, madam.
So 1 minute, sir, for his point. Sir is totally asking on the recharge, what the parameter to consider from the pollution aspect. This session is mainly on the energy conservation and pumps, motors and everything. So that session will be different actually altogether. Recharge parameter consideration, what are the particles to be done. We will connect you to Mr. Malika Arjun. You can have an offline context with him so that will be better. Otherwise, we can also have anyway, we have a rainwater harvesting experts also. We can give the numbers to share it, sir. Because, we are only focusing on energy and what to be considered without hurting any type of pipeline designs and everything. So you are totally asking on the recharge structures and everything. So we will connect you.
Ma'am, I will just clarify from my point. What Malika Arjun sir has presented us in this presentation regarding the energy efficient, he have kept 2 points. First is to recharge the borewell. It is also somehow directly connected with the energy efficiency. And second, he have told key for pump efficiency, for which sir has told that it will be some other session will be there for.
So we are going to have the session.
So both two points I have noted, and both are directly related to energy efficiency only, ma'am. That's why I have raised this issue.
Yeah. So that's why I'm telling
Okay,
we will
madam.
have
So, 1
after
minute,
this
sir.
session we will see.
Okay, just to continue, sir. 22nd March, I think, is going to be World Water Day. And there is going to be a presentation by me in Ashray Mumbai chapter. Maybe if you can share your details, I'll share the link with Shubha madam, who can share it with all the other delegates of interest, so that you can join discussions on water management. That would be addressing energy related activities as well as other hardness related activities as well, water quality improvement, other details. And subsequently, of course, you can share the email. I'll share all my presentation on water management benefits.
Yes, sir. Please share your email ID and mobile number
Sir,
also.
Sir, it is there on the screen. It is there on every screen that is being presented by me at the bottom. My mobile number is there and my email ID also is there. CEO@sunshubrenewables.com.
Okay, sir.
Sir, can we finish as early as possible? Next speaker is
Done, madam. Done. We are almost finishing it now. Now, the other part is like coming to the conclusion. It is important that every energy auditor is considered as an intellectual property. We are not suppliers of any equipment or products. So, intellectual property has got to be respected, is what I basically appeal to all the people. And look how best you can extract information from us. And this is what basically I would like to make my presentation. If there are any queries, yes, like I said, sir wanted. Yes, there are good number of paper presentations. If you go back and then see the very first slide, water energy, two faces of a coin. And if you can read the comment made by
So thank you, Mr. Mallikarjun, sir. Anyway, we are sharing your numbers and everything. Anyway, it is there so that if they have doubts, they will ask actually. Thank you for our joining in this session.